New Zealand Safe Travel Zone. The New Zealand Safe Travel Zone allows travellers to fly to Australia quarantine-free after being in New Zealand for 14 days, without applying for any travel exemptions. Routine pre-departure and on-arrival screening will apply. It is important for traveller to check arrangements in the place of arrival and final destination, as quarantine requirement might apply. For more information, see Department of Health, Coronavirus Advice for International Travellers. Link mentioned below. New Zealand citizens outside New Zealand. New Zealand citizens who have not been in New Zealand or travelled outside New Zealand for last 14 days are not eligible for Safe Travel Zone. Australia Travel Declaration. It is important to complete the Australia Travel Declaration at least 72 hours before departing on your flight to Australia. The Australia Travel Declaration collects your contact details in Australia, flight details, quarantine requirements, and your health status. This information helps the Australian government determine your quarantine arrangements if made, and allows them to contact health departments to contact you if someone you travelled with came COVID-19 positive. COVID-19 outbreak locations. See the Australia Travel Declaration page for a list of New Zealand locations that are of concern. If you have been to any of these locations during the time specified, you will need to identify this on your Australia Travel Declaration. Travel exemptions. Travelling from New Zealand to Australia. Travellers who are arriving in Australia by air and have been in New Zealand for last 14 days or more before their travel to Australia do not need to apply for travel exemption, as they are automatically exempted. You will need to apply for a travel exemption before you travel to Australia if your stay in New Zealand in less than 14 days before you depart for Australia, including travellers who are transiting New Zealand, or you intend to travel to Australia by sea. If you have already submitted a travel exemption request, the authorities will continue to process travel exemption requests from passengers travelling from New Zealand. Travelling from Australia to New Zealand. If travellers have been in Australia for 14 days before they depart for New Zealand, they can travel on travel exemptions. Leaving Australia. Travel restrictions. Temporary visa holders do not need an exemption to depart Australia. Advice on entry and quarantine requirements relating to arrival in New Zealand should be obtained from the New Zealand government. Arrival in Australia. Green and red zones on airports in Australia separate passengers based on their arrival requirements, that is, quarantine-free flights from other passengers who are required to isolate for 14 days. People travelling on a quarantine-free flight will be guided through a green zone to complete all border clearance formalities at the time of arrival at the airport in Australia. For further information for travellers arriving in the Green Travel Zone, see Department of Health website. This is the end of today's video update. If you like today's video update, please share the video with your friends and family on Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter. Thanks for watching.